So welcome here to the first webinar of 2024. We hopefully get some more people filing in, but we're excited for this. This is a bi-weekly webinar that Jim and I host to add value to real estate agents, help the community. One of Jim's favorite sayings, iron sharpens iron. And this is something that this very relevant topic is something that's come up from the agents. So excited to do that, to host this this webinar here, the first one in 2024. My name's Ryan Poole. Okay, I'm a co-host. I'm also the founder of RealTrade, an online marketplace, social media platform for real estate. Jim's favorite saying is the home of the double dips. So the cool thing is you create a profile as an agent on RealTrade and you can get leads directly. And of course, you can leverage the social media aspect to help sell properties quicker and faster on RealTrade. Best part is it's free for agents. So I tell everybody, if you haven't created a profile, check that out and do that. So yeah, excited to host the webinar. Jim, you want to do an intro about yourself and
Yep,
tell
we'll do this
about all
for
the
the evergreen content because Katie and Jeff are loyal patrons and followers and disciples and all that good stuff. So I'm Jim Brown. I'm the founder at New Path Title and James Brown Law. And Danny and myself to my, what is he on my left, are the innovators at Title Leap. And we have a couple of different products that we're going to go over today and how they can help realtors become more efficient. I've been doing this my whole life. I love real estate. I wake up more excited every day to tackle real estate topics with you guys and make you more efficient. We're going to try to keep this to 30 or 40 minutes. If you can turn on your cameras like you've done, it's awesome. We're going to have question and answer at the end, but since we have two agents today, we will do question and answer. We can do it agile as we go. And I'm going to introduce our time-saving tools as we go through the podcast today, instead of doing it at the end. And any topics you have that you want to go over in the future, just text me or throw them in the chat and we can get into that stuff in the future. I have some ideas, and if I bounce them off you guys and you like it, that's what we'll do future content on. All right, without further ado, Ryan, I think that if you're an agent and you're not using RealTrade, that you're not taking advantage of a significant tool you can take advantage of. So anybody who's not familiar with RealTrade needs to get familiar with RealTrade. It's the modern platform for sure.
Yep.
Anything you want to add before we jump in?
No, excited for this one. Title issues, nothing can blow up a deal faster than a title issue, right? And obviously, Jim, you're the expert on this, so you're going to be sharing some great information on it. That can help. The agents it's funny as an agent, right? Every deal's different. It's just like that's one thing I like about being an agent. It's almost like a quest and an adventure every single sale.
A
So
little story.
it is. It's like a little story.
Every story,
And
every
everyone's
closing is a
different.
story. Yeah.
It is, and everyone's different. So yeah, let's dig into it, Jim.
And the thing I love about this business is I love hearing the agent story, right? I don't care how many years I've been doing this. I love hearing the acquisition and the buy sell or how the parties got to the table. All right. So today we're talking about 3 things that can kill transactions. And you never have to close late again. And you never have to work on a property that will never close. You can see the outline, Ryan?
Yep, I can see it.
You never have to work again on a property that will never close. You need 4 things to make a closing: a buyer, a seller, a money, and you need title, right? Agents work hard to find the buyers and sellers. They get a pre-qual letter to make sure they can get a loan and get a proof of funds and to make sure that the buyer has the cash to close, but almost no agents work on title. So they're leaving 25% of the deal up to chance.
True.
I have received so many calls over the last week from deals that will never close. Let me blow this up a little bit. And when people call me, I feel terrible, right? Because this stuff is so avoidable, and we give the tools away to you guys so you never have to run into these issues. And all you got to do is take advantage of the tools, and you have the roadmap to close every deal every time. All right, 3 things that can kill closings: mortgages, because of unanticipated equity hits. Sellers frequently think that something doesn't have to be paid off in the closing. When they talk to the realtor about it at the listing appointment, they don't disclose it. And then they find out 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes a few days before closing that they're going to have a problem. So these mortgages and the equities in his properties get skinnier and skinnier we're finding more and more people are not walking out of the room with what they thought they were going to be walking out of the room with, or canceling altogether. And I can give you a couple of FERPTA transactions recently where transactions were canceled last minute, but code violations with fines. So we'll go over code violations without fines in a minute, but code violations with fines, those will kill a deal. We had a transaction a couple of months ago. Seller thought they were walking out of the room with $60,000. They found out last minute they were walking out of the room with $17,000. Who had to give up a little bit of their money? The agents. It always happens. And agents, in my opinion, you want to keep the deal alive. Something's better than nothing. But why give away your commission, right? Let's get that knowledge in your pocket ahead of time. Let's make you keep that commission. Let's not have this thing a last minute negotiation. I can give you a million examples of that. Liens. So liens come in two varieties. There's voluntary and involuntary, and we'll go over those two types of liens in a second. But those are the three things that kill mortgage, that kill closings last minute that we see over and over. Good morning, Tanya. And we can give you guys tools on how to avoid all three of those things every single time. There's one type of issue that a title advance won't expose, and that's title defects in the chains. They're very, very rare, but they do come up. But this will help you guys out of 99% of your jams.
Yeah.
What does it look like?
I just want to give one, like, as we're seeing here, what can kill a deal, and just one, for instance, personal experience that I've had is that title advance would have definitely cured, and you want to know going into a prior listing is there any types of liens on these properties? Because I had the famous, and
MB, yeah.
the realty lien, and it ended up costing me thousands of dollars. I had to cut my commission nothing just to save the deal, right? It would have been literally 5 minutes of work to order a title advance, and I would have known that going into the sale. I spent months on selling this home, and you imagine not getting paid on it.
I just talked to a guy who worked on a property for months and months and months to work on the seller, to work on everything, get to the closing table, and only to find out there was a second mortgage that they didn't tell the listing agent about. And when they got to the table, they were going to have to, when they got to closing, they were going to have to come up with $5,000 or $10,000 to, I think it was $15,000 to close. And they said, we're not closing. Go ahead and sue us. We don't care. The seller.
Yep.
We'll just rent the property. So
no, it's real world. So, I mean, it's just like, we're talking your time and thousands of dollars that this can help with, for sure.
we have our man online with us tonight. Ray. Ray is the mastermind behind the program. He gets fed all the data. He crunches this stuff, and to get your title advance, you can go to titleadvance.io. You can order your title advance. It's real easy to do.
You can order it on RealTrade as well, Jim.
You can order it on RealTrade as well. When you get to the bottom, you just give us your name, the mobile number, and an email. That's all you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the next screen. It's just got an address and a couple of other things, and that's it. Yep. When you get your title advance back, it looks like this. The names have been changed to protect the innocent, right? How much did I date myself right there? So you've got the date, you've got the property, you've got the owner, you've got Faithful Ray who prepared it, and then you've just got a brief list of the mortgages and the code compliance issues. And Ray actually scrapes the municipal records, and he also includes things that show up in the municipal records. So you've got none found. Now, all this looks like a mess, but these are all points of discussion to be had with your seller. Now, is this a particularly junked up title advance? Absolutely. Do they all look like this? No. Ray does tons of them that are super clean, and he sends a letter out to the person ordering it at the same time and says, hey, congratulations, the road to closing looks really smooth. Good work. Anticipated closing will be really easy instead of, something fought with all kinds of bumps, road bumps, speed bumps, all kinds of stuff. So you can order your title advance on titleadvance.io, or you can go to newpathtitle.com. You can order your title advance here. And if your title advance has issues, you can go to either newpathtitle.com or you can go to Title Advance and you can order a title insurance commitment. What is a title insurance commitment? So you get your title advance back, it's got problems, and you want to know how to solve them because they're not obvious. You can order a title insurance commitment. A title insurance commitment costs, what did we say, Ray? 180? I think it's 180.
Yeah,
And
it's 80, 180.
180, and then when you close, we will reimburse the agent if the seller doesn't want to pay for it. If the seller pays for it, they'll get a credit. If the agent pays for it, they'll get reimbursed at closing. And what does a commitment look like? If you go into your Title Leap account and you sign in and you go to your documents section, so you're in your transaction. This is a transaction that I happen to close. A realtor brought me a deal. I fixed up the property and sold it recently. So you go into Title Leap, you click on your transaction. You can go to your documents page. It'll be at the bottom on your phone. And you can click on the title commitment. There's the title commitment. The title commitment is the exact thing that you're going to use, the title agent will use to close the transaction. So you get a title advance, the title advance has problems with it, and they're not, we can always have a conversation. You guys text me 24/7, we'll have a quick conversation about what it'll take to close the file. And I may suggest, let's order a title commitment for certain types of problems. Lots of this stuff we can solve without a commitment. If you do get a commitment though, you're gonna see the actual roadmap that the title agent uses to close your file. We'll go over the title commitments more in depth. We can do a session on title commitments and surveys or something, but for now, here's the insurances, right? So here you have the owner. This is the person who's going to get insured. Here's the seller, the person that's giving up the property. Here's the different insurances that are going to go along with the title commitment. So you got a lender's policy, you've got an owner's policy. The lender's policy is in the loan amount and the owner's policy is in the sales price amount. You got the agent signs here. Here's the roadmap to the closing. These are all the things that the title agent has to do to close your file. The title advance is a glimpse of the title commitment, a free glimpse into what the title commitment looks like. So you have the requirements. The requirements are what the title agent has to do to close. You've got a whole bunch of what we call standards, which is every single deal, right? Every single deal is going to require a deed. So there you got the deed from the seller. And if there's a loan, they're going to have to sign a mortgage. These are all the things that are obvious. They want you to pay their fees for the policy. Surprise, surprise. Then we have to do an update right before the closing to make sure nothing last minute is recorded. And we'll go into this in more detail. But here's the particulars on this individual transaction. So here's record a satisfaction, release of lien, right? And there's the booking page for the release of lien. Obviously, that'd be the same booking page referenced in your title advance. You need an affidavit from a reliable person that there's been these are standards. No, this is a notice of commencement that has to be terminated. We'll go over notices of commencement in a minute. Here's another notice of commencement that has to be terminated. These will show up in your title advance. So we can work on getting these notices of commencement terminated before we get the contract. You have no idea how many contractors are aloof if they've been paid and they have no incentive to provide these things to the seller, right? They've been paid, they're down the road, they could care less, it just drags on for weeks. If we do the title advance, we'll know these things ahead of time. Here we have affidavit of reliable person. So this would just be something the seller would sign as a standard in the closing because there are open notices of commencement. So those are all things that'll show up in your title advance. And then here's just some more standards, a survey. They want to know why there's no mortgage on the property, all kinds of standard things. Now here is Schedule B2. These are things that aren't going to show up in that aren't going to be remedied in your closing. So these are the exceptions from coverage. We don't have to go over them today, but we'll go over some significant exceptions in coverage that we've seen problems with in stopping real transactions. So we did one recently where there was mineral rights easements. I don't know if you guys have ever looked at a title insurance commitment before. A simple nod is fine. If you haven't, that's totally cool. But there are properties out west in Calusa and the acreage where people gave away mineral rights years ago.
Wow.
And if the mineral rights were given away with the right of access, it's problematic. If the mineral rights were given away without the right of access, Katie, James and I did one of these deals for not too long ago, then the buyer would have a problem if the person who receives the mineral rights has the right of access. And we can go over that in more detail in the future, but that's killing deals for sure. And it's easy to figure out whether it does or it doesn't. So this is a title insurance commitment. B2 are the things that aren't covered by title insurance. And B1 are the things that have to get solved, remedied, closed for closing. So, show agent to order commitment, explain the commitment in order, briefly review title insurance commitment. All right. So now we've gone over the title insurance commitment. If you have problems that we can't figure out from the title advance, I'll refund whatever the agent paid for the title commitment at closing back to the agent. And if the seller pays for it, the seller will get a credit at closing. So liens that are not mortgages typically fall into two categories. So we all agree mortgages are liens. Florida is what's called a lien theory state. A mortgage is a lien. But there are other liens that fall into two categories that aren't mortgages. What are they? These are typically agreements. What are agreements? Like notices of commencement, the NV realty agreements for paying perpetual listing fees, notices of interest in land. These are all voluntary agreements that kill closings that we can solve ahead of time if we know about them ahead of time. Involuntary liens, what are those? Typically, these are judgments. These are like child support, credit cards, lawsuits with judgments. And something you have to remember is lawsuits with judgments linger in the public record for 2 10-year periods. So it's 20 years. So 19 years ago, your seller gets a credit card judgment and they think it's 20 years old. 19 years old. Nobody's ever contacted me. If that property sells within the next year, it's going to have to be paid off unless it's their homestead. But if it's their homestead, then we need to know ahead of time so we can do certain things. And we'll go over that in a minute. So is everybody cool on the involuntary and the voluntary? Like the voluntary stuff is
I mean, I've had like the biggest one, I guess, that I've seen on my real estate deals, right? If there's some kind of, federal taxes, right, that hadn't been paid, that's a big one, right? That you see pretty often on that. Obviously, we talked about the MV Realty one, that was that's a for sure one, that you should literally just to check that. Cause I mean, like I said, there's nothing worse than what happened to me. And I wish Title Advance was there for that, but that was a few years ago now.
So the federal tax lien stuff is a really good example too, Ryan. So federal tax liens, we have a lot of success in negotiating federal tax liens. Here's the problem. They're really slow. So if you have a property with a federal tax lien, it will be revealed in the title advance. You don't have to spend the extra time for a title commitment, and we can get signed up and we can start tackling it early. But those federal tax liens are ungodly slow. And we did one not too long ago, and there was a complicated transaction with Florida property and people in probate and people arguing and people all over the country, heirs all over the country. And one of the heirs was misinformed by somebody, an attorney, who said, oh yeah, federal tax lien, we'll get that thing resolved in no time whatsoever. So we gave our price for our law firm to do the work, and they said, no, we have a guy much cheaper, much quicker. So and the thing stalled, died on the vine for 6 months. And then we finally got the job back and we got the ball over the court. We got the ball over the goal pretty quickly, but It took a long time and it was very expensive. Federal tax liens are not easy and they all are very fact determinative. So I'm glad you brought that up. So here's 3 tools that we can use to battle liens, which aren't mortgages, so we can close on time. And this only works if we know the issues ahead of time. So this is the kind of stuff that we need to know from you guys ahead of time so that we can implement these tools and we can use them to the benefit of everybody. But if we don't learn of this stuff until the closing, then the closing always gets postponed and sometimes canceled. So there's negotiated settlements. These can be very effective if it's an old judgment and a creditor who might think, you know, something is better than nothing. So we talked about that credit card judgment that was 19 years old. If you don't tell them the property's being sold, they don't know. And maybe they know there's only 1 year more of lien rights. And you're going to give them something is better than nothing. And you can get them wiped out. They can be very effective if equity is tight. So in this situation, you might show them that there's very little equity there. And you might have a seller that just wants to get out of the property. And so they'll be happy to just take whatever's left over instead of the whole thing. And now the seller's not coming to the table with money. We've also done this where there's equity. We've also managed to cram down these things when there is equity, but when equity is tight, it's especially effective. You have to understand the business goals of the parties, right? You just have to know what everybody's objective there is. I'm working one right now where the seller is a homeowners association high bidder. He paid almost $300,000 for the property on a $17,000 homeowners association judgment. You can't make this stuff up.
Jeez.
The properties, he thought he was a first lien holder, and the property is under contract for 530 grand, and there's $120,000 first mortgage. So $220,000 first mortgage. So we're trying to cram down the first mortgage lender a little bit so we can get this guy out of the property without losing his shirt. Because right now, as it stands, he's got a real problem because he didn't realize he bought his first mortgage. Again, a title advance could have saved this whole thing. He didn't realize he bought a homeowners association lien subject to a first mortgage. And now, you know, it's a typical story. I hear this 3 dozen times a year. The most unfortunate one that comes to mind was a guy bidding on a piece of property with his mother, and they were using their life savings to buy a condo and the presidential and the subject to a first mortgage. And whenever you're bidding on something and the judgment amount is a low number and the numbers are going through the roof, there's a good chance that it might be too good to be true. And so you got to really make sure you're bidding on.
Advise him as an agent not to put your life savings into the presidential condos.
Well, these people, to make it even sadder, these people didn't have a whole lot of money. I think their condo purchase, this was pre-COVID, I think their condo purchase was like 160.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought they were going to make 20 or 30 grand and flip it real quick for, you know, 200, put a couple bucks into it, flip it for 200. But anyways, that's a whole nother.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're talking about 3 tools to battle liens so we can close on time. Only works if we know the issues ahead of time. So the negotiated settlement, there's homesteaded property. There's a tool we have available to us called the designation of homestead. A designation of homestead allows us to file something in the public record. You'd have no idea how many title agents have no clue this tool exists. I would question whether it's lawful for a title agent to use it. A law firm should use it, but you know, I'm sure there are title agents who do. But anyways, it's a tool available to allow a notice of filing to be sent to the creditor, and then the creditor has a period of time to object, and then you can close on time if the creditor does not object. So if you guys are closing deals with other title companies and they say, oh, we have a problem and it's a homesteaded property and there's a judgment creditor and the seller says, I don't want to close, there's a tool available to those sellers to send a notice to the judgment creditor. We'll go over the rule right here. So there's a legal process that requires filing of notices and specific timeframes. So we can close only yeah, like if we know ahead of time. Here's a Chat GPT summary of the statute, right? So Chat GPT, what an amazing tool. I'm reading the statute again for the first time in 2 or 3 years this morning, preparing for the seminar, the discussion. And it's so confusing the way the statute, all these are links. I'm going to send you this. So if you click into the statute, you're going to see the last sentence of this statute is so poorly worded. I'm scratching my head trying to figure out how to explain it to you guys. So I went to Chat GPT. I cut and pasted it. And I dropped it in Chat GPT and I said, please explain this in plain language or more briefly or in an easy way to understand. Yeah, I think that's what I said, in an easy way to understand. And it sent me basically this. If a lienor receives a notice of homestead and fails to file suit within 45 days to either determine the property's constitutional homestead status or foreclose the judgment lien, then the lien does not attach to the property. Oh my God, why can't they just write a statute like that, right? It's so simple to understand, but the property must be sold or mortgaged within 180 days of the notice of homestead is filed. So that's basically the rule. If you guys are stuck in a transaction where the seller doesn't want to sell because there's a lien on real property and it's homestead property, just remember we can go to the outline and we can pull this up and that'll get you guys that rule. You can give it to your title agent and they can use it to your benefit. We've used it countless times over the 20 years I've been in practice. And we've used it to gain business also, where people came to us and said, we don't know what to do. Title agents, sellers came to us and said, we don't know what to do. And so we pulled that one out of the quiver. Not to be confused with the Florida statute that allows you to file an affidavit of homestead. So there's another statute that allows you to file an affidavit of homestead, which will protect you against future judgment creditors. This is a statute that allows you to close property for past judgment creditors. Does anybody have any questions on this? It's not rocket science, but it is confusing.
No, it is, but you're bringing some clarity to it. I mean, the point is that we have these things in our quiver as an agent, right, to help close deals. I guess the important part is like, if you have a lien on the property, then you can do these steps. But how do you know if you have a lien on the property? Order
Exactly.
a title advance. Order a title advance so everything's in front of you and you know what to do and you have the steps at that point. I mean, I really believe here in the not too distant future, agents have to become knowledgeable of the title issues and the liens on the property so they know how to move the deal forward.
It's a matter of, how hard you guys want to work. The goal is to get the maximum commission on the minimum work. And if you want to do that, knowledge is the strength, is the tool that gets you there. And title advance is just a tool that increases your knowledge base.
Yep.
All right, so again, 3 things that we can use to avoid liens so we can close: negotiated settlements, homestead property, we have tools, code violation, lien mitigations. So if you have a property like that property we looked at that had the code in the title advance, you don't even need to order a commitment. You would just call me up, you talk to your seller, we could have a 3-way, it's real easy. I'll tell them what we can do. A code lien mitigation is a plan on 6 months and usually about $2,500 in legal fees. We've been doing this stuff for a ton of time. Property must be in compliance before an application for relief can be filed. Oh, let me go back to the 6-month thing. Well, I'll go back to the 6-month thing in a minute. Property must be in compliance before an application for relief can be filed. For some reason, there are a ton of attorneys out there that are telling sellers they can file for a lien mitigation application before the property's in compliance. The first thing you have to do before you file your lien mitigation application is you have to get a code inspector to come to the property and write that the property is in compliance in the code record. If it's already in compliance and you just haven't applied for the lien, that's fine. But let's say the most recent one I saw was for a commercial property on Military. They had a electrical panel that was a bird's nest and undersized. They brought the file to me and they said, I was cheaper than the lawyer that was going to do it for them. And they wanted me to do the work for them, the lien mitigation. And when I told them they have to get the property into compliance, they were like, what? They were just dumbfounded, right? It only makes common sense that the city's not going to reduce their liens unless the property's in compliance. Sometimes that can be ugly. Sometimes that can be like a property we did up in Central Florida, a big horse property. where the buyer took title to property and there were improvements, monuments, front gates, things like that that were built without a permit and were built without being in the proper setbacks. So they thought they were going to mitigate the liens, but really what they had to do was tear down the monuments. There was a couple $100,000 in stonework and monuments and walls. So first thing that has to be done is the property has to be brought into compliance. These things are like a mini court case with a judge and a hearing, sometimes called a special magistrate. I've done special magistrate work. They aren't always judges. Sometimes they use attorneys knowledgeable in the area. And we can do them much quicker than 6 months sometimes because we have many out-of-court settlements due to strong reputation for performance within municipalities. So we've represented so many people. Sometimes we can get these things done without a hearing. Ava in my office is awesome at it. And the code inspectors know that whatever we say we're going to do, we get done based on a history of performance, and they'll let us do this stuff. And sometimes we can get them done in 2 or 3 months. Sometimes they have to show up as an agenda item on a hearing, and that's another 30 to 45. It can be a 60-day delay. So that's why these things are so drawn out. And then post-COVID, Lake Worth has a strict scheme within they operate within. So you know when you're going in, what you're going to get out on the other side for lien mitigation. Does everybody know what I'm talking about when I say a lien mitigation? Let's just say the property, I did one for a woman. She had a rental property that had a $270,000 violation on it for long grass and unkept landscape. It was her principal residence, but she left the property. She got older, she moved in with her kids, and so the city was sending violations to the property all the time. She never updated the deed or updated her domicile, so she wasn't getting the notices. And I think the notices went on for 6 or 7 years. So then, then she wanted to sell the property, and when she went to sell, the property had, I think it was a $270,000, $60,000 code violation on it. The code violation wasn't for health, safety, or life-threatening situations. So we petitioned the judge, we gave him the facts, we submitted a lien mitigation application. We worked the case on our facts, and since there were no health or safety violations, the judge gave us, I think the amount we walked out the door with for a penalty was ridiculous. It was like $2,700. It was like 1% or something, and she was ecstatic. I mean, I've seen these things go, unfortunately, the wrong way, but a lien mitigation is a package of documents we submit to a special magistrate, to a court, to a hearing, and they pass judgment on how much they're going to reduce the lien. I was doing one in Riviera Beach not too long ago. We got an incredible result, and then the attorney behind me, who was next up on the agenda on the docket, got clobbered. And it's factually contingent. It's your record of performance, and it's how you present your case. And the guy walked out of there. I thought he had a slam dunk case, and he got clobbered. It was a title defect that his office had overlooked, and the judge just blasted him. But and if you're going to do these things and you're going to sell the property, do it before you sell. So you always want to work for the seller, because once the buyer takes title, judges are pretty harsh on investors. Let me pause and say that one more time, because I get calls from agents on this frequently. If you're going to do a lien mitigation, do it for the seller. Don't take title and do it for the buyer.
Yep.
If it goes to a hearing, we also have a good reputation with the judges, and they've obtained lots of favorable decisions for clients. And you want to make sure, if it's not us, you're just using somebody who has a history of performance with these things. Ask them how many they've done, ask them for some recent examples. And a lien mitigation is one of the 3 tools, homestead property and negotiated settlements, one of the 3 tools we can use in your favor to close the file if we know ahead of time and not delay closing. All right, that's the material I have for today, but I wanted to, for extra credit, we're going to do a question and answer, and this is also open to my staff, there are several of them on the call on the show today. All right, extra credit, code violation complications to ponder. Why don't code violations without a lien kill closings from a title perspective? Why don't code violations that don't have a lien kill the transaction from a title perspective? The reason why is because it's a contract issue, not a title issue.
Yep.
So it'll kill your deal, but not for title reasons. It'll kill your deal because you've got a seller default. Those won't show up in a title advance of the public records, but the way Ray works them, he also throws in the municipal records. So those things will show up in the municipal record report, providing your municipality has that stuff and reports that stuff online. We'll get it into you. We'll get it to you in the title advance, but those will kill the deal because they're contract issues, but they are not title issues. They don't become title issues until something that we'll go over in a second.
So they can still get clear title insurance even with code violations too.
If everybody agrees to it,
Yeah.
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 If everybody agrees to the closing, the thing can close. It'll be an exception.
Okay.
It'll be depending on what it is, it could even be an exception from title coverage, but it won't kill the deal from a title perspective. Good point, Ryan.
Mhm.
Where do code violations without liens live? Where does a code violation that doesn't have a lien, where can you find it? A code violation or an open permit that doesn't have a lien will show up in that municipal records search. Ray gives them to you in a title advance, but if you go to the municipality, you can go, most municipalities, probably, Ray, what would you say, 70% of the municipalities we deal with, 75%?
Give or take 60-70%.
Have a online portal, but you don't have to do that. We'll do it for you. And you can see where those violations live and open permits. So
So
let's
is that
go
with the building department then? Is that
construction services, the building department, yeah.
Okay.
West Palm Beach makes it ungodly hard to get to. Others make it a little bit easier, but we do them so much that we hammer them out quickly, and Ray does a beautiful job. Why aren't they in the public record? Okay, here's a really hard one. Why aren't code violations that don't have liens in the public record? Because they've never been to a judge and the judge never started imposing a fine. You're only going to see the stuff in the public record that has a fine. So if you have a code violation, let's just say uncut grass. I had a case up here in Riviera Beach last year. Great story. I'll tell you if you guys want to hear it. So the property had uncut grass. It was in the public record because a couple of things had happened. First, there was a notice of violation sent to the owner. Second, there was another notice sent with a hearing. Third, they didn't show up at the hearing, and at the hearing, the judge imposed a fine. So once there is a fine, it's a lien against real property. It moves from the municipal records to the public record. The municipal records are where you guys see utility bills, open permits, code violations, things like that. Once they have a dollar value attached, they go to a judge and then they go into the public record. The public record is where you see deeds, mortgages, all the money stuff that affects real property, judgments. All the money stuff is in the public record. All the violation and permit stuff are in the municipal records. Municipal records cross over to the public records when there's a money thing attached, money issue attached. What does it take to get a code violation in the public record? We just went over it. Notice, usually a second, well, I've seen it a couple times where there's been a notice with the court date on the first notice. But it's one notice, and then you have an opportunity for compliance. Then you have a second notice where there's a hearing. Typically, I've even seen third notices given, and then it goes to the hearing. If you show up at the hearing, all you got to do is tell the judge, I'm going to get this thing into compliance. Or if it's tough to get into compliance, I need more time to get this thing into compliance. You won't be violated. You won't be fined. If you don't go to the hearing, you're going to get fined. Sellers are going to get fined 50 to 200 bucks a day. It's just the way it works. All you got to do is show up. I get so many calls on the morning of the hearing and the people, or the day after the hearing, and they say, oh my God, we didn't show up. We didn't think this was real or whatever. All you got to do is show up. We're happy to show up for your clients. We're happy to show up and do the stuff last minute, but all you got to do is show up. All right, we're at 37 minutes. That's what I got for you guys. I'm gonna brand and take my notes out of this thing. But the goal is never close again, never work on a deal that can't close, and win your listings. More importantly, right, when you show up to a listing appointment, take your title advance. You're going to distinguish yourself to that seller. I was talking to a new group of agents last Wednesday, and I told them about title advance. They're like, oh my God, I need one of those things for the weekend so we can go to our listings and win the listings. The sellers will be impressed when you know more about the property than they do. And then you never close late again because you're going to be closing on time because we'll whack all this stuff in the meantime. And in the worst case scenario, you find a property. The one that comes to mind most recently was somebody who had a code violation for a fence, right? They built their fence in a park in Boca, and the fence, the property, the owners had a ton of sad stories, sick kids, divorce, you can't even make this stuff up. And the code violation was hundreds of thousands of dollars. They had been at the property for 20 years. And even the mitigated lien was going to be a lot of money because Boca was not relenting on this thing for whatever reason, and it didn't close. And so that's the type of stuff that we can figure out ahead of time. And the agents had so much effort. We did another one for Big Dog Ranch, was one of the parties in the transaction. Everybody, this was like 4 or 5 years ago. Everybody worked on that deal for months. I mean, I want to say like a year, and the thing never closed. You can avoid all that stuff. So anybody have any questions?
No, that's great. That's great, Jim. Katie just asked in the chat. I'm just answering like, how much does title advance cost? Best part,
Good question. Free,
go ahead.
no cost.
Yeah.
All you
No,
got to
it's
do is, you guys are still looking at my screen, right?
mhm.
All you got to do is go to titleadvance.io and request your free title advance. No
Yeah.
cost. I guarantee you within 2 to 3 years, this will be industry standard. Everybody will be doing it.
Yeah. No, it's a good value add, guys. And just from an Asian perspective that I've used it too. I mean, I've had used title advance, and I've gone on listing appointments where the seller didn't even know they had a second mortgage. They thought, oh, that was just like a HELOC. That wasn't like a real mortgage or something like that. And I'm like, well, that's going to have to be, taken care of, right? At, at closing, right? They're going to have to pay that thing off. And obviously then you can have the conversations more in the price because they think they have a different, payoff and, all that kind of good stuff, which is huge. And then obviously I mentioned the MV Realty one, but these liens too. I mean, geez, what a hero you would be if you went into the listing appointment knowing that there was some kind of crazy lien that they weren't even aware of. That like, hey, listen, we're here. I want to help you sell your house, but let's clean up this lien first. Let's take care of this first. So that's a big one.
Well, here's a real biggie for for realtors rather. So a couple of things come to mind. MV Realty, Y Green and Pace loans, right? So you're at the listing appointment, and you can dig through the tax records if you want, or you can just order a free title advance, and you're at the listing appointment, and you can have that conversation with your seller about Y Green loans and Pace loans. Show of hands, or anybody who doesn't know what a Y Green loan or a Pace loan is, it's a loan that gets wrapped into your tax payment. And here's the kicker. When the salesperson sold the Y Green loan for the improvements to the house, so the house it's an older couple, the house is not in great shape, and it's got brand new windows, right? Brand new windows. That reeks Y Green loan or Pace loan. That should be a little siren in your head. You go to your title advance, you're going to see it. You can have that conversation with your seller at the time you're there. This even works in condos, because some of these condos, I was looking at a condo the other day where the owners buy their own windows and doors, right? Most condos aren't like that. The title advance revealed a Y green loan. It had brand new windows, and the agent had the conversation with the seller ahead of time. Hey, these aren't assumable. The salesperson for the Y green or the PACE loan tells the seller as an inducement to make the loan happen that these loans are assumable. There is no buyer that will assume that loan. There's now a checkbox and an addendum in the standard FAR contract for Y green and PACE loans. And so it's known ahead of time. But if you don't even know they exist and the seller is told that sold that bag of goods, you don't know what to do. You get a title advance, you see there's a Y green loan and a PACE loan, and I've seen multiple agents come to the table and cough up commissions to take care of these things when the sellers just went, I'm not closing, make me.
Yeah.
So title advances will reveal that. There was another thing that came to mind that title advances will reveal, obviously skinny equity and things like that, like Ryan was saying, but all those things, real estate's a lot more complicated than it was 10 years ago. But you also have more tools available to you. I was talking to some people the other day and they're like, oh, what do you want to do when you get, they're just graduating college. What do you want to do when you get out? Oh, I want to sell real estate. What makes you want to sell real estate? Selling Sunset, $1 million listing. I want to live in that world. We all know the reality of selling real estate. So we want to make your journey as easy as we can so you guys can do the hard stuff. Bless you, Robert. I've gone over what I wanted to go over in closing. Did you want to go over anything in closing, Ryan, except for how amazing RealTrade is for agents and
No,
gives
I just want to leave this in closing. Thanks everybody for attending for our first webinar here of 2024. And we got a big schedule here for this year. We're going to be doing it bi-weekly, continuing to add value to agents, make your life better. But I do want to add this, as an agent, because obviously I own RealTrade and that's a great product. And I definitely highly encourage you agents to sign up, because you literally 10 minutes of work can make you tens of thousands of dollars. So I love that aspect. But I do want to say this, title, using title advance would have saved me thousands and thousands of dollars. I use it now on every single transaction. So definitely use that. I can't say enough good things too. We didn't talk about a lot about Title Leap, your software, Jim, that is almost like your own contract coordinator. Again, it's free for agents as well, right? That the agents can leverage and keeps track of their drop dead dates. And it's all in one place, communication tool, and it keeps track of all the contracts all in one place. Love using Title Leap, Jim. And of course, your expertise as an attorney. Guys, Jim shares a number that you can text him like literally 24/7. And if you're having a deal blow up or you have like some kind of crazy call at 9 o'clock at night, Jim's there for you to answer that. So can't say enough good things, Jim, about you, about my awesome co-host here for the bi-weekly webinars.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it. So I don't even talk to staff anymore for my deals closing in the office. Christian's online with us. I just message him in Title Leap and I wait for him to respond, and I message him in Title Leap and I get a text back. I don't even contact him anymore, and he's right down the hall. So it just works. And my wife, she's the most not technically savvy person. She'd kill me if I ever said that or heard me say that, but she loves Title Leap. She buys into it wholeheartedly, and it's just easy to use. So I was thinking about a topic for next time we get together. Do you guys want to do a show of hands, nod, whatever you want to do? Do you guys want to do a deep dive on permits and code violations and stuff like that? Do you want to do, there was another topic I was thinking about. There's some stuff that we've done.
Robert's raising his finger. Go ahead, Robert.
I've got a topic that maybe everyone would be interested in. It's been on my mind. I was going to call you, but maybe, just put it on the table. I apologize for being late. I got to fix my calendar. I thought to start it at 10:30. So I have an interest in purchasing county foreclosures or tax deeds. I've been hesitant because I'm told that if you buy something that has a foreclosure on it, there could be a lien that, that didn't show up in public record or something. because the last thing you want to do is to buy a foreclosure, you pay off, let's say, the condo HOA, and then all of a sudden some lender, whether it be a first or second mortgage, they now all of a sudden want to foreclose on the same property that you took title in. So I know you were speaking about this title advance. I mean, my question to you is how accurate is it? Or maybe you could do one of these seminars on this particular topic. If one wanted to purchase, foreclosure tax deeds for their own portfolio, because we are real estate agents, we are in this business, and people say you should invest in what you do. And there's a company called Property Onion that will help with this process. But I've been afraid to pull the trigger on a fear of getting burned, that I purchased something and all of a sudden somebody comes back to me and says, nope, you owe more money. Or
No, so you bring up a really timely question. Earlier, before you got in, we were talking about a guy I'm working for right now. He spent a ton of money on a homeowners association lien, only to find out there was a first lien foreclosure, or a first lien that's foreclosing. And now he's upside down, and he's actually into the property for well over 300 grand out of pocket.
man,
And he's not looking at zero on his 300, but he's looking at a serious haircut. So there's two different issues. There's foreclosures, judgment foreclosures, homeowner association foreclosures, and first and second mortgages, or there are foreclosures related to tax liens. Tax lien foreclosures wipe out everything except for tax liens wipe out everything except for federal tax liens and some super liens for municipalities in general. And mortgage foreclosures, there's a ladder. First mortgages wipe out seconds, seconds wipe out thirds, homeowners associations wipe out seconds. We can go over all that. I'd be happy to do that. It would be a topic for agents to help, like you said, strengthen their own personal portfolios. But it's complicated. How much would I rely on title advance to bid in a foreclosure? I wouldn't. No way. If you're going to bid in a foreclosure, Property Onion is good. It's not perfect. The only thing that's perfect is going to be ordering a title insurance commitment. So if you go over to newpathtitle.com, you can see order title insurance commitment. You can go over to title advance. You can scroll to the bottom. You can order a title insurance commitment. That's going to be as close to perfect as you can get. Are title insurance underwriters perfect? No, but if a title insurance underwriter makes a mistake, at least you've got coverage.
Oh, so you do have coverage.
Yeah.
Like title insurance.
But here's the thing, and we can summarize real quickly. The best, so I get the benefit of working for tons of realtors and tons of investors, and I even get to see the work of other title agents. The best investors are the ones that know how to work the public record for their own benefit. A title commitment costs $180. I'll credit you at the closing, but how many closings are you going to have if you order 10 title commitments? Title advance will get you in the ballpark. Title advance will give you a real good idea, but I would never rely on a title advance to make my own purchase.
Yeah. Because I was looking into purchasing a tax. Well, I had a client that was going to purchase a tax deed. The seller, who was a real estate agent, would say, "Oh, I purchased this tax deed, and it's free and clear. You can take it." And then we come to find out that it wasn't free and clear. That you have to hold it for 4 years.
No.
Unless it's something called a quiet title.
No, that's a whole nother, that's marketable title. It's not that it's not free and clear, it's that you can't find a buyer. I mean, we can go down, I can briefly tell you what that means in 2 seconds. It just means if you buy a tax deed foreclosure, you assume because you're the high bidder on Monday that you can sell on Tuesday. But the reality is nobody will underwrite the insurance from a title perspective on Tuesday unless you do one of two things. You wait 2 years or you perform a quiet title. And then you have sellable, marketable title.
So
then you have insurable title.
What's involved with a quiet title? How much does it cost and how long does it take?
It depends what the issues are. Typically $3,500, 6 months. Can be a little shorter, can be a little more expensive. I mean, there are some defects that a quiet title aren't going to fix, but typically that's the situation. But in a tax deed foreclosure, you're going to have, there's a third remedy to a tax deed foreclosure. You can get a certificate of title from somebody, and they're going to give you a certificate that allows you to get insurance from them only. The problem is your buyer's not going to be happy. So there's 3 resolutions to a tax deed to make it sellable. You bought it on Monday, you want to sell it on Tuesday. You can either hold it for 2 years and season the title, or you can do a quiet title, 6 months, $3,500, or you can do a title certificate where a title agent reviews the process. And there are companies out there that do this. I can give you their names. If you want to text me, I can give them to you. And so you pay them like $1,800 and they review title, or $1,500 and review title, and they'll certify it for sale. The problem is you got to use them as a title agent and only certain underwriters. It limits your, it's like having a car that can't be serviced at every dealer, at any corner shop, right? Now you own a car that can only get service at one dealership in town,
Mhm.
right?
So that could be good for, for me being the seller, but,
Buyers
the,
don't like
the
it.
buyer would have to be okay with it.
Yeah, the dealership lives, the shop is right around the corner from your house, so it's no big deal for you to only get your car serviced there, but your buyer lives on the other, in another state, they're not going to buy from you. They live in another county, they're not going to buy from you. Same
So
thing with,
do you or your office handle this type of thing? Like if
Yeah.
I had my eye on a property, can I hire you to help me get this where I could sell it on Tuesday, whether it be a
Robert,
foreclosure
I'm
or?
gonna be honest with you, because I'm never gonna be anything less.
Okay.
I would love to help you with every element of the transaction, but the people that are the most successful at it don't rely on me. I'm happy to be your backup, but if you spend a bunch of money on me on title commitments, you'll go broke. And so I'll help you with it. You can, and certainly if you are a successful high bidder in a tax lien sale, I'd be happy to quiet title and work through it with you and do all those things. Absolutely. You would want to get a title commitment and look at title, right? But it's a big investment. So that's like the gamble. You have to figure out where you want to spend your time and money.
$200 though, right? $180, Jim, right?
$180. Yeah.
I
But
mean,
I
if
mean,
you're
if you're
getting
gonna
like,
look at,
you're really keyed in on one property. I mean, how many bids are you making?
yeah.
I mean, how many
Yeah.
bids are you making, Robert, on these properties?
Some investors call me and they're going to be bidding on 6 or 12 or 24 of them. I mean, it just depends. But if you're looking at one property, you get your title commitment. You can go to New Path Title, or you can go to titleadvance.io, and you can get your title commitment. And then you're going to know exactly what you're looking at. The big thing with, unfortunately, one of the big things with tax lien property is the person stopped paying their taxes. Why? You have to figure that out. Sometimes it's just because they're dead, or they're not interested, or it's too small. But a lot of times there's no access, right? So that's a survey issue, or you have to understand the property and where the right of ways fall and things like that. Like every one of these little tax liens, if you watch the YouTube videos, they make it sound like it's really easy, and they want to get you into their program and say their $3,500 course. Tax liens they're not rocket science, and they're not a mystery, but there are a lot of boots on the ground work and a lot of understanding what's going on. There are tax liens on vacant property that I know people that have bought that don't have access. And somebody bought the property a long time ago and made payments on it and even paid it all off on their little loan. And they were going to come down here and they were going to move in. And then they realized there's nothing they can do with the property because it doesn't have access.
And by not having access, are you referring to tenants living in there?
Doesn't have access because it doesn't front a thoroughfare, a roadway.
Oh.
There's no way to get onto the property.
Yeah.
So we were looking at looked at a little tax deed property that somebody bought recently over by just north of Belvedere. There's the canals and 95 and that intersection. Belvedere 95 goes overhead, the canal's right there. There was a little corner piece of property. They bid the thing way up. And then they came to me after the sale and they bought a property that was too small to be built on. If you ask me, I would have thought it was buildable, but they didn't research the easements. So they had a non-buildable piece. They spent quite a bit of money for it. And then we had to negotiate with the owner next door to buy the owner next door's property, so they had a buildable lot.
I'm up in Stewart, Martin County, and this is really the only area I'm interested in. But a friend associate put me in touch with two separate men who've been doing this all their, for many, many years and are very successful, and it's their full-time income. And the guy said to me, one just said, get lost. And the other one said to me, he said, look, I don't want to sound like a jerk, but I'm not going to tell you anything. He goes, if I tell you how I do this, he goes, you're going to cost me money. He goes, even if you don't outbid me, you're going to wind up bidding me up. And I said to him, but I only do Martin County. He said, yeah, but I look for opportunities in the whole state. So the people that know how to do this don't want to share it because they think that you'll be bidding and cost them money.
Yeah, I mean, the bidding's online now. It's not like it was. We used to show up in the courthouse years ago in the cafeteria at the courthouse, and everybody knew who was showing up, and everybody knew who the heavy hitters were. And when a new guy showed up or a new woman showed up, it wasn't real successful for them. But that's not the way it is now. There's a gentleman recently who went to jail, and there were several indictments, and they were texting each other while they were bidding on property. Hey, don't bid on this one, I will, and you bid on the next one, blah blah blah. It's not like that anymore.
Yeah, well, I'm not
Ryan
really.
knows who I'm talking about. I see him smiling.
Yeah, but I wasn't really
I used to
referring.
get the texts. I didn't respond.
What was the name of it? The Prodigy or?
No,
Yeah.
no. I'm not mentioning any names.
I was more referring to the safety of knowing that you bought a clean property. That was what I was mostly referring to.
2 rules. Learn how to manipulate the public record really, 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 really well, and know what falls on the property: easements, access, development rights. Depends what you want to do with the property. And then the third one is, if you like Ryan said, if you find a property that you want to commit to, order a commitment, order a title insurance commitment.
Because the problem, Jim, is even if you know that there's a mortgage on a property, I found it to be impossible to find out how much that mortgage is, because no one will tell you the balance of the current mortgage.
I think there's some tools out there like Property Onion that have mortgage balance estimators, but it's a terrible tool because here's why. Sometimes people don't pay their mortgage.
Yeah.
You can have a reverse mortgage, and the reverse mortgage, we saw one the other day. Tajay in my office and I were looking at one. You can have a reverse mortgage where the loan amount was the amount that was recorded in the public record. It was $440,000, but the loan balance was $14,000. So looking at the property in the public record, you saw 400. If you ordered a title advance, the title advance would show a lien for $440,000. So you go, oh, no equity, right? There's 500 grand in value, no equity, or by the time commissions and the little fix up and everything. Reality was there was a $14,000 mortgage balance, which you could never tell from the public record. And
So there's no way.
no. None of those tools out there available to you can tell you that. Now, change the facts a little bit. The lender files a Liz Pendens. Now, Property Onion or any of those things, you can, or you or I can estimate what the balances are, but it's going to be an estimate. You can't get a balance until you get a payoff, and only a couple different people can order payoffs. You got to be a title agent, or you got to be somebody named in the loan. So if Robert calls Chase Bank and wants to get a payoff on Ryan's loan, Robert can't.
No, I did that. Wells Fargo. They said we need the borrower on the phone. We need the Social Security.
Party and interest. You need a party and interest, or you need the title agent. But there's tons of people who, I'm not advocating it. I'm just saying a lot of people dummy up loan authorization requests, right? A lot of people do it. I'm not suggesting you do it. I'm just saying it's done. How did you get the loan balance? Oh, I just dummied up a payoff request.
Yeah. So there's no safe way.
Well, the returns are big for a reason. There's a ton of people who are not in the space for a reason. There's a lot more tax deed burns than benefits, but if you understand what you're doing, and here's the other thing, Robert, there's no easy way to say this, but there's no school for this that teaches you everything there is. I've been doing this for 40 years and I still learn something all the time. The people who are selling you their programs, I've listened to their content. There's so many errors in what they're saying.
Mhm.
There's so many not truths in what they're saying. It's scary to me. And you just have to try a few and you have to understand the flow and rhythm and cadence. And then if you're comfortable with it, then you do it.
Yeah, well,
Do I do tax lien foreclosures? I do not. I did a few long time ago. I didn't see a ton of upside, and it was a lot of legwork on low dollar value property, $14,000 and 21,000. You know, I got the properties cheap, but they were low dollar value properties. So I ended up, when I did a cost benefit analysis afterwards, I looked at the time I spent on it. It wasn't great. But like you said, I know a couple people who just do tax liens and they do really, really well. They do a lot of vacant land stuff in Central Florida, a lot of general development lots and things like that.
I mean, I have a certain amount of money, which I'm comfortable with, but I can't afford to lose any. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, you bet. I think that, one thing we forgot to mention with, that was the thing I forgot to mention when we were doing the title advances also benefit buyers. So you're not making offers on properties that have problems and then you're going to boomerang at the last minute, right? Your sellers, you want to nip that stuff in the bud when you're listing the property and having those difficult conversations with sellers. But from a buyer's perspective, you're up in Martin County, buyers are paying for title. Robert's making an offer on property. You want to make sure you got to sell the buyer, and the buyer says, oh, we got kids who are starting school in 45 days. You want to make sure we can close, whatever it is. Mom and dad are coming down, they sold their house, whatever it is. You want to make sure you're only making an offer on property that can close. If you order a title advance and you see there's two mortgages and the mortgages are close to the payoff amount or the close to the sale price, they're recent mortgages, the balances you're imagining are still big. That's cause for pause right there. Do I really want to make that offer? I want to have that conversation with the seller's agent first. The title advance is invaluable. And then in paragraph 20, I wish I had mentioned this during the show. In paragraph 20, I'll add it to the outline. You can write the title agent shall be. And so now everybody knows who the title agent's going to be. You're making the offer and you got, and your buyer's choosing title and you've made the offer and we can be the title agent for you and get you into Title Leap and all that good stuff. And now you control the deal and you know it's going to close.
Yeah, good advice. Good advice, Jim.
All right, you guys, it's nice to see a new face. Mira and Annette, you guys stuck it out. You're marathoners. We love it. And we
Awesome.
will all work together to make money. Pleasure seeing you again, as always, Tanya.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks,
You
everybody.
bet. Thanks for bringing it up, Robert.
My pleasure. I'll see you next week at 10.
You bet.
Okay.